But then I kind of looked and concentrated, and it was all of my other lives. I need to make a decision whether or not I want to go back to the physical world or stay on the other side. So my name is Amber Kavanaugh. I live in Canada on Vancouver Island. This brings us to, yeah, December 22nd of 2021. I was 40, at the top of my game, loving life, coming out of COVID, kind of, and being able to celebrate Christmas. We spent the whole day making gingerbread houses and just having family time. And that night, we were sitting on the couch watching a Christmas movie, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I did tend to get headaches, like tension headaches, weird sensation, and then a super bad headache, like couldn't over my eyes type of headache. And I'm like, you know what, you guys, I don't really feel well. And I was going to be cooking Christmas dinner for like 30 people on the 24th. And I'm like, I'm going to go to bed. And so I went to bed. It was only maybe 9 o'clock. And around 10 or 10:30, I texted my husband from the bedroom because they were still watching the movie. And I said, I have such a bad headache. I can't even see straight. Can you bring me a Tylenol and an Advil? And he did. I took them. And I thought then I fell asleep. I think I fell into unconsciousness. The headache was my carotid dissecting on my left side. And when your carotid dissects, it actually, I guess, is painful and causes a super bad headache. And so I fell asleep. And then my family did the normal stuff, went to bed, stuff like that. And I didn't wake up until I think about 4:30 or 4:40 in the morning. And I woke up thinking I thought I was dreaming. And my bed is really high up. The stroke was on the left side, so my right side was affected. And so it just so happened I was able to kind of push myself up, not realizing I was completely paralyzed on my right side. And so I stood up, and when I put weight on my legs, my right side just gave out. I crumbled to the ground, and I still didn't know what was going on. I didn't even think stroke. So it had dissected and I had had a stroke, and it ended up being a completed stroke. So I had an MCA ischemic stroke, and it was my MCA2. And if you catch a stroke early, you can stop it and stop the deficits from happening or reverse them. But mine, because I didn't wake up, went all the way through my MCA2 and it was complete. So it all was dead. And because I hadn't woken up, it caused a secondary frontal lobe stroke. So essentially, I'm missing 2/3 of the left side of my brain now. So I fell to the ground and I didn't understand what was happening. And I still thought I was dreaming. And I didn't realize, like, your brain doesn't tell you you're paralyzed. I just didn't understand why I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And so I'm like, I just need to get to the couch. I need to get to the living room to get my husband because I also couldn't talk. I couldn't scream. I couldn't make a noise. And so I tried to army pull myself across the floor and I couldn't. But there was a wall right there. And I don't know how long I was trying to crawl. It seemed a long time, but it probably was only a couple of minutes. And I banged like 5 times super hard on the wall. And my husband had actually been sort of startled when I fell out of bed, but when he didn't hear anything else, he went back to sleep. And so he came in, and at the same time, I woke up my mom because they live in our basement suite. And so she was like, "What is that?" And then came up just after him. And he came in the room and he tried to pick me up. And he's like, "What are you doing on the floor?" And he tried to lift me under my arms. And it's very hard to lift dead weight. And he's like, "What is going on?" So he put me down, turned on the light, walked around, looked at my face, and he said, "I think you're having an effing stroke." So I got to the hospital and I was still completely conscious, and they bring me into triage, and they were talking and chatting and laughing, all the paramedics, not looking at me, not anything. And there was a nurse facing a different way, checking in patients to the ER, and he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "What are you guys doing? She's clearly having a stroke. What are you doing?" And he picked up the phone and called a stroke code. And everything from there on went super, super fast. I was in the CT within a couple minutes. As I was in CT, my husband came. They saw the carotid dissection. They saw the massive stroke. I was in my body still, but it was very, I don't know. I was kind of disconnected a little bit. And so I could hear them saying things about what they can do, what they can't do. It might just be permanent. It's pretty, but they decided to give me TPA, which is clot busting medication that works 50% of the time, also has a very, very high instant death rate. And with that medication, you usually see improvement very quickly. And they didn't. Nothing came back. Nothing. I didn't start moving. I had no reaction to pain stimulus. I couldn't hold up my arm. It was completely paralyzed. And because it didn't work, there's only one other option, which is brain surgery. And they didn't do it at the hospital in my town, so they needed to life flight me. But there was a storm coming, and the helicopter didn't want to come. And the nurse, the charge nurse, who was amazing, got on the phone and started screaming, saying, because my kids had come at that point because the doctor and nurses said that they need to come and say goodbye because more than likely I would not make it to the next hospital. And so I could hear her screaming, I'm not going to watch these kids watch their mom die on Christmas. You are going to come. It's like a 15-minute helicopter ride. So you need to come. And finally, they agreed. And the helicopter comes. And at this point, I was barely conscious. I do remember people saying goodbyes. A few of them, I remember my kids saying goodbye. I remember a couple of my family members. At this point, people had been waking up. And so my family was calling my other sisters and other family members. And so they were coming to say goodbye again because I wasn't probably going to make it. And they were very clear that I was probably not going to make it because the damage was so extensive. And so they all said goodbye. They strap you into all of these things for the life flight because you can't move and stuff like that. And it was a beautiful day all of a sudden. The sun was beautiful. It was early in the morning still, maybe 9 o'clock. And I do remember being pushed towards the helicopter, going in the helicopter. And my husband was allowed to come in the life flight. There normally nobody's allowed, but again, they thought I was going to die before I got there. And so they didn't want me to die alone. We got in a helicopter, they take off. And when we got up to a certain height, the sun came in the window and hit my face. As soon as the sun hit my face, that was it. I was on the other side. My body was still clinging to life and I could see it. I could see my husband. I could see my body, but I didn't have a lot of attachment to my body. It was like I closed my eyes and opened them, and I was in this beautiful garden. The grass and the water was like nothing I've ever felt in my entire life. I think I wasted more time feeling my feet in the grass than actually making this decision to come back. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was there to make a decision and nobody was going to make it for me. So I think my experience was a little different than a lot of people's because I didn't feel super pushed either way. Everything kind of glowed with like essentially the light of God. There's just love that radiates from everything. And I wasn't alone either. My guides, who I had gotten to know very well since I accepted my gifts, were there. They were sitting on a bench that I kind of would sit with them for a bit and then get up and walk around. Very strangely, I guess, for some people, my husband was there and my kids were there. I didn't talk to them. But again, my belief, even before the stroke, was that our higher selves are always on the other side. They're always there, connected to us, but also connected to all the other lives we're living. I saw a couple of my animals that have passed, and actually, I saw one that hadn't passed, but unbeknownst to me, she would pass before I got out of the hospital. my mother-in-law who passed away in 2011. And then to the side, kind of, there was a huge group of people, dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like, I don't think I know them. But then I kind of looked and concentrated, and it was all of my other lives there to support me. Again, we're all kind of one. So we can look separate, but we're not actually separate. And so my guides were super helpful, and they said, I need to make a decision whether or not I want to go back to the physical world or stay on the other side. And I was very aware that this beautiful garden, although part of the other side, is kind of like an area where you can go when you're still human or attached to a human body. And I knew that if I died, I would go to a different place, but I wouldn't change the garden for anything. The other thing that's kind of interesting in a human way is I looked like the best version of me. I was 40 at the time, but I looked 25. I was wearing a beautiful white eyelet dress. I had no wrinkles, and I had no flaws, no weight, like heaviness to me. And I had no pain, even though my physical body at this time was still in the helicopter. I was clinging to life. They were trying to keep me alive to get me to the next hospital to have brain surgery. But my guides showed me what was going to happen with either choice. And once I got there, I knew everything. I understood everything. Every choice I had ever made in my life made sense. Everything that I had ever regretted as a human or things that I had done to hurt people made sense. There was no question. There's just an all knowing that your life was planned to learn. You're doing it right. There's no judgment. There was not one moment where I felt like any decision ever that I should regret. So having that knowledge and having the ability to take away that human amnesia that we're born with in order to survive here made the decision so much easier because I could kind of remove myself a little bit. And they showed me what my kids' life and my husband's life would look like if I didn't go back. And I still didn't feel sad because I knew innately that they would have chosen and planned that as well. They showed me what I would do if I did go back. I would write books and I would speak to very important people about the gift that we're giving or given to learn. And they showed me that 18 months after the stroke, I would be able to learn a lifetime's worth of patience to prepare me for what was coming. But they also told me that 18 months, especially the first 6 or 8, would be the hardest time I have ever lived. And I have not had an easy life at all, full stop. I've had a really difficult life. But again, you're kind of removed from that. Like, okay, yeah, it's going to be horrible, but like everything feels so wonderful here. I can handle that. I didn't really realize what it would feel like to be completely paralyzed and not be able to talk. At the time, my body was paralyzed and I was not verbal. I wouldn't be able to eat or drink or go to the bathroom, but I still didn't feel like I had to do something one way or another. They really let me just sort of look at all options and try to figure out what would be the most comfortable for me. There was a bit of a guiding energy of God. I didn't see God. I know a lot of people think God's an old white man. He's definitely not. God is more of an energy. And something else that was interesting was that there were no words. Everything was telepathic. You just knew as soon as you were there that need to only hear things was gone. It felt like I was there 50 years. I know I wasn't. It was minutes. It was in the helicopter until I landed, got in the next hospital, and then I had a grand mal seizure because of the my brain swelling. And my guide said, if you are going to die, you're going to have this seizure, and they're going to try to resuscitate you, get you back. You'll go back and forth a little bit, and then you were going to actually die at 12:22 on December 23rd. And so that was my physical time frame. Again, I was still alive. I just wasn't attached at all to my body. I was on the other side. And when I finally made the decision that I'm going to come back, again, nobody pressured me. They just showed me my past, present, and future with either choice. I decided to come back. And in the instant I made the decision, I was out of the garden. And that was it. And I'm like, what? But I didn't go back to my body. I went to this, I want to say a light filled waiting room, but it wasn't a waiting room. It was just this light filled, all encompassing area where then I could just watch me. I could kind of see my family still, but my soul was back connected with my body. And I got to make the decision whether or not I wanted to be in my body with the seizure, because they can be really painful. And I didn't want to. So I got to stand and watch. I could see my husband. And when the seizure happened, I was in the hospital. I started seizing, and grand mal seizures look really scary. And it took a long time for it to stop. And so I watched that happen. And as soon as the seizing stopped, your body goes into like almost like a comatose state. You fall asleep really deeply. And that's when I joined back to my body. I was in the light filled waiting room, and then I wasn't, and I was fully in my body. And that was it. It was kind of blackness and pain, I think. And so it then was a waiting game. The doctor came in and said, we brought her here for brain surgery, but after seeing the MRI, the brain surgery is not going to help her. The damage is too extensive. We could maybe go in and take the blood clot from the small stroke, but there's a huge chance, like 70+% chance, that doing that will cause a stroke on the other side of her brain, and she'll die anyways. And miraculously, I didn't die in that first 24 hours. So they moved me from the ICU. So over the next couple of days, and the neurologists and the doctors all said, like, this is her. This is going to be her life. She's going to need continuous care. I had a catheter. I couldn't eat. I was being fed through my nose down a tube, and it was horrible. I couldn't walk. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't, turn over to not get bed sores. And they were very realistic that, I'll probably be in the hospital for a long time, try to get some rehab or move me to a rehab facility to try to get something, but more than likely this is going to be her forever. And then hour after hour, I started stalking them. And on, I think, December 27th, I walked for the first time, walked to the bathroom. Going to the other side, I would like to say that that was the most exciting time in my life, because I've never felt more peaceful or more wonderful or more grounded or more belonging. I just want to let people know that we get to choose. We get to choose what we learn, and we come here to learn. On the other side, everything is love. There is nothing else. So, you know, in my view and what I've seen, there's no hell, there's no punishment, there's no judgment. So the only thing that happens there is love. We come here to experience everything else. So the reason we're here is to learn. Your human self doesn't choose. That's chosen before you come here. And we get to choose exactly how we learn and how we experience our lives. The learning and where we focus that learning is what makes us move forward. So it's not punishment. It's not, God or your guides on the other side saying, oh, ha, here you go, have this. You suck. Have fun trying to walk through that. No, it's your guides and God and everyone you love saying, we know you are strong enough to walk through this life. We're going to walk beside you as you learn these lessons. If you ignore the lessons, they'll keep throwing them at you. So try to focus on what the lessons are. That's why we're here. We are here to learn.